The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done.
Your job is done. Okay, so is anybody surprised? Anybody surprised at the verdict? Okay, I'm surprised at the verdict. Because if what Kyle H., I guess the H stands for homicide? I don't know. Because if what Kyle H. Rittenhouse did in that street on that night, if that's self-defense, then what isn't? See what I mean? What isn't? This is so unbelievable. I mean, this verdict says that it's self-defense to kill people who try to stop you after you've killed somebody. See what I mean? See what I mean? So, I mean, this is unbelievable. I have to tell you, you know, he's been acquitted on all counts, right? And if the only thing I find really insulting is the pause that made us think that the jury was actually deliberating something. That's the insult here, you know. I mean, that's just bizarre. That they thought about it over 3 days. Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please. So this is where we are, and now we have the Arbery trial to listen to the closing arguments on Monday, and the Unite the Right, or the Unite the White rally, the civil suit there. They also rested in that case. This has been going on a month with the, Nazis that are defending themselves, the Richard Spencers and the crying Nazi, They've been defending themselves in the courtroom, screaming things like, Hitler was right. And how our courts allow any of this to actually happen this way is, it's a mystery wrapped inside of an enigma, stuffed inside of a riddle, is what it is. I mean, the courts are just, they're useless now. They're useless. Vigilantism is, I guess Wisconsin, they don't have a problem seeing a 17-year-old kid carrying an AR-15 into a provocative situation by choice and then shooting at people and then claiming he was afraid that the people that went after him for shooting people were going to hurt him. Sorry. Time to call Matt Gaetz and tell him to go ahead and offer him that page job in the U.S. House of Representatives, which, by the way, was off the chain last night. I mean, this was just insanity. So, last night I was sitting there, and of course my family is gathered in the living room and they're watching, I want to say Lion King, but it's not Lion King. What is it? It's Tiger King.
The Netflix documentary Tiger King?
Yeah,
the season 2 just dropped. So I actually rewatched season 1 myself. I just dove into the new season.
No, they watched all 5 of the new season last night. All of them, 5 hours, all sitting in the
What'd they think?
I don't know. I was watching C-SPAN. I was spending the night, all night with Kevin McCarthy. I'm probably the only woman on the planet that could actually say I stayed up all night with Kevin McCarthy. Because that was just unhinged behavior. That was just bizarre. It was creepy. It was insane. This man, stood there for 8 hours. I guess he thinks being Speaker of the House only involves speaking. That was an audition. About 1 o'clock in the morning, he actually asked point blank, can I be Speaker now? Can I be Speaker? This was crazy. And he did all of this to slow down, to obstruct, to make painful the ability for the House of Representatives to have a vote on Build Back Better, which clearly was going to pass because the Rules Committee met yesterday as we were leaving the air, and they had just gotten the CBO score, not the entire score. They got the financial information from CBO that said that the Build Back Better plan was 99.9% paid for. They didn't give as much credence to the collection of tax cheats debts as the House did. So they assigned a lower dollar amount to how much the IRS could actually scare cheats into paying their tax bill or get cheats to pay their tax bill. And so there's a balance of like $16 billion in this this $1.75 trillion package, right? Otherwise, it's paid for. And the moderates were convinced, and the moderates told Nancy Pelosi, get the Rules Committee together, we're going to vote, and you got my vote. Okay, there was just one guy who comes from a real red district in Maine who is a Democrat who didn't vote yes. But I'm sure Nancy, understood that he was a no and everybody else was a yes. So she knew she had the votes. So McCarthy decides he's going to go to the floor last night and he's going to, I know it's the House of Representatives and they don't have a filibuster, but he's going to filibuster anyway. As the leader, the minority leader, he does have something called the magic minute. The magic minute. And no, that's not when Kyle Rittenhouse kills you. But he has this opportunity called the magic minute where he can assign to himself in his minute floor speech as much time as he wants. And that's what he did. And he stood there for 8 hours saying absolutely freaking nothing. Nothing at all, except, can I be Speaker? I want to be Speaker. It wasn't even a meandering speech. It just sort of sat there and festered like the oozy, pussy gravy sore that he is. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like watching a necrotic, gross, pussy gravy sore. It's like that pimple popper show. Anybody watch that? That is disgusting. But ladies, if you watch the entire speech, you are probably the only woman I know besides for me who can say you stayed up all night with Kevin McCarthy. It was pathetic. So he went till 5 o'clock in the morning. Now I want you to understand what he was railing against, okay? Pre-K. I'm not kidding. And he did it till 5 in the morning because he wanted to beat Nancy Pelosi's magic minute moment. Now, Nancy Pelosi did an 8-hour speech on the House floor to try and advocate for dreamers, to try and advocate for kids who know no other country but the United States of America as their home, to be able to have a pathway to citizenship, okay? So she actually did an 8-hour speech about the importance of these children, their contribution to our country, how they have to obey the law. They can't even have a traffic ticket and be eligible to get on a pathway, but there's no pathway. Kevin McCarthy, he decided to rail against pre-K for 8 hours. Pre-K, which he called welfare, which he called a handout, which he called Marxism, Stalinism. It's like, I never saw anything like this in my life where they could stand up in public, rail against affordable childcare, rail against pre-K, and the base is I don't know if they're cheering. I don't know what they did. I have no idea what Al-Qaeda did with Kevin McCarthy. But I mean, let me just tell you something. They voted this morning at like a little after 9 o'clock. And it made Build Back Better pass the House today. And it made it look even better what Kevin McCarthy did, because anything that stopped Kevin McCarthy from being Kevin McCarthy, appealing.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I can look anywhere I want, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I cannot believe the amount of control one-party rule wants. They now want to dictate to a member of the floor of where I can look. This isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is the safety of this nation over a self-described police abolitionist. So let this sink in. You're encouraging more of them to come. We think, that's a little unfair. The other countries got destroyed a little more than America. Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Gas prices, Thanksgiving, a border. And we went down the path with the doors open. America, you're weak. You're weak, America. You're weak because you believe in God and you take fentanyl. Yeah, I want to go back.
You take fentanyl?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. Oh! I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
That's exactly what it was like. And there I was sitting in my office watching this, telling my family, I'm going, Jess, come here. You want? And she's like, I'm watching Tiger King or Lion King or whatever that, it's not a musical. So whichever one isn't the musical is what they were watching. And I'm sitting there going, no, you don't understand. This man is like, do you know who these guys behind him are? Do you have any idea? No, Aunt Randy. And no one does. Okay, no one does. This is your sad, sad life.
He just, America is, I'm part of America, and I'm shocked that he knows I'm doing fentanyl. How did he know?
You're weak because you believe in God and you do fentanyl. He actually just screamed.
Where does he get his intel?
I don't know, man, but he was really doing that last night. He was going, can I just be speaker now? Can I just be speaker? I mean, it was incredible. It was just an amazing show of stupidity. And I have to tell you, AOC and Jamie Raskin, the whole Democratic caucus, they were all on the Hill last night until about midnight when Pelosi told them that they could go. She said, you know what, we're not having a vote tonight because this is a really important piece of legislation. It's going to help people all across this country. 80% of West Virginians, by the way, 80% of the red state, West Virginia, are totally supportive of Build Back Better, the human infrastructure package. They want the child tax credit continued. They want, pre-K to start at 3 instead of 4 because, when Manchin was governor, he actually started pre-K in West Virginia at 4. They want to see it expanded to 3. It would help them go to work. And they think that anything that helps people who are doing for themselves is something they want to see happen, okay? They understand healthcare is the new industry in West Virginia. They're not idiots. They're not stupid. They get it. And they were polled. Nope. Oh! Nope. Yes, they were polled. They were polled, and they all agreed that they wanted to see this money invested. They wanted to see it. And so, look, just so you understand what happened last night, okay, McCarthy stood up on the floor. He said absolutely nothing in 8 hours. I mean, like nothing. He was just delaying the inevitable, which was a vote this morning at 9:46 a.m. to pass Build Back Better, which Kevin McCarthy had the weird effect of making seem even better because it was the end of his floor speech. Woohoo! And anything that brought that agony to an end was welcome, okay? But now, just so you understand what's going to have to happen here, now it goes to the Senate, right? And we only have a 50-50 Senate. We can't lose any votes. We could lose 3 in the House. That's how close the majority is, 3 votes. If we would have lost 2 more moderates, 2 more corporate Democrats, this bill would not have passed. So now that it's passed the House, only 1 Democrat voted against it. And I'm sure Jared Golden got permission from Nancy Pelosi to save his own seat, to save his power, to save his behind, literally saving his seat. How else can you, process that information? That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to vote no to save his seat, save his ass. Right? And she said, okay, I won't count you in. Don't worry about it. We don't need your vote. We don't need it today. So he got to vote no, but he was the only Democrat to vote no. So now it goes to the Senate, where we can't lose any Democrats. We can't lose any Democratic votes. And Manchin is still, playing his game. He's still playing his little game, like, what's in it for me, pal? What's in it for me, right? And now we know that 80% of West Virginians said that they want him to vote for Build Back Better. They want that. And they want it now because they know what's in it. They've had enough time. It's been like 7-8 months. All right, so if they change as much as a comma and they make it into a period, it has to go back to the House. It has to go back to the House. The House tried to pre-conference this bill with the Senate, meaning the Senate would agree with what the House passed. Nope. So if they take out what is in there is the 4 weeks of federal paid family medical leave. So, God forbid you get sick, right? Now you could have 4 weeks to recover and the feds would pay, I think it's 85% of your salaries, which means people who are just barely squeezing by really still wouldn't be able to take 4 weeks off at 85% of salary if they're just, but at least it's a start to join all the other industrialized nations in the world that all offer paid family and medical leave so that you can adopt a child, so that you can have a child, so that you can stay home and take care of a sick relative. Your mother, your father is, in hospice care, and you would like to be there to hold their hand as they exit stage left, right? So that's in there, and Manchin is against it. So you know that that's going to come out. You know it is. And if he takes that out, if he says, you could have my vote, but I will not give my people paid family medical leave. I will not do it. I'm against anybody not showing up for work, no matter what the circumstances are. You're asymptomatic, you're symptomatic, your mom's dying, your dad's dying, your baby's dying. You just had a baby. I don't care. We are not down with you having any time off with pay. Like out of a Dickens novel. Merry Christmas, everybody. So if he changes it, then, of course, it has to go back to the House. And the House will then have to get everybody all around it again and vote again with the changes. So that's where we are. And, this bill probably will not get passed till Christmas. But at least it won't involve Kevin McCarthy. Woohoo! Only Mitch McConnell. It's like with Mitch McConnell, you're dealing with true evil, right? You're dealing with something that is truly, truly evil. With Kevin McCarthy, it's sort of like you're dealing with Dr. Evil. Do you know what I mean? Like a mini-me is about to, appear on the scene. So anyway, you know who those people were sitting behind Kevin McCarthy? I was trying to explain to my family that was having absolutely none of me because, when you watch the C-SPAN, it's like doing the fentanyl. It's like doing the crack. No one wants to be around you. So I had to do it alone. But that was Mike Pence's brother. Now think about that. These are the people that provoked the violence against Mike Pence and his brother, spineless.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
This is AOC staying up with Kevin McCarthy last night.
Live from the cloakroom of the United States House of Representatives, one of the worst, lowest quality speeches I have ever had. Look at this. The absolute atrocious lack of privilege to witness. Kevin McCarthy speaking against unions, speaking against universal child care and universal pre-K, child care, etc. Along with all these Agent Smiths in the background, exhibiting the stunning diversity of the Republican Party. Look at all of those different colored ties and haircuts. I have never seen a more diverse Republican Party than the one behind Kevin McCarthy right now. So, not only that, but he has managed to speak for over an hour with one of the lowest vocabularies I have ever seen coming from a member of House leadership of any party. It is stunning to me how long a person can talk knowing and exhibiting and communicating so little.
Look at the amazing diversity of the Republican Party. Look at all the different colored ties. Look at all the haircut choices. Very diverse group they are. Very diverse. So that went on for 8 hours. And then, I got to play you one more. This was Jamie Raskin and AOC. A few hours later, still watching Kevin McCarthy.
More upset about climate action and universal pre-K and Medicare covering hearing than he is about his own guy, Gosar, creating a violent homicidal cartoon that he put up on the internet and refused to take down for you. And they're really upset because we censured him for it yesterday.
They are upset.
And I heard you made a beautiful speech yesterday, AOC, and I missed it.
Thank you.
But I'm going to check it out tonight after I hear this, one of the greatest speeches in American history. I mean, not since the Gettysburg Address has America witnessed a speech like this.
I mean, the Gettysburg Address was elegant and brief. So.
Yes.
Elegant and brief.
You could fit 100 and maybe 20 Gettysburg Addresses in what he has done already.
Let's re-examine this peanut gallery right over here. Okay, ready? All right, this right here, Mike Pence's brother, also a member of Congress. I mean, you know, whatever. Okay. Here we have Representative Clyde, who said that January 6th was a collection of tourists. Meanwhile, I heard that he was crying like a little baby on the day that it was happening. And I mean, look at all these folks. Again, stunning diversity in the House Republican caucus. Yeah, listen. And then, of course, we have their leader. So, I mean.
Well, but how are you moved by the fact that Vice President Pence's brother is sitting next to a group of people who defend the insurrectionists who were chanting "Hang Mike Pence"?
Oh my God!
Hang Mike Pence.
I mean, you have Ted Cruz, that the president humiliates his family, and he goes to bat for him. And then you have this man, you're right, sitting next to people who were encouraging folks who literally wanted to harm his own family. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But I mean, hey. Anywho, this man clearly will not stop talking, but has nothing to say.
It's so true. He talked for 8 hours and said absolutely nothing except railed against pre-K, railed against paid family and medical leave, railed against childcare, railed against Medicare negotiating the price it pays for drugs. Literally was denying climate change and saying that to tax the corporate, to tax the wealthy was, somehow wrong and bad and socialist and Marxist and Stalinist and all those other things. I mean, it was one for the record books, that one last night. It was just really freaky and bad. And then this morning, we actually had the vote, right?
On this vote, the yeas are 220. The nays are 213. The Build Back Better bill is passed.
Yay! MAGA! So we are making America great. We are actually making America great. We are passing legislation that will help the middle class so that one middle class person can stop tearing apart another middle class person and get on with their lives, get on with the living of their lives, because opportunity is there. Pell Grants for advanced, education past 12th grade is now there. The threshold for getting a Pell Grant is now lower. Pre-K is now going to be a universal thing. Childcare will not cost you more than 7% of your income. The wealthy will be taxed at a higher rate than people who are secretaries, people who are service employees, people who, suffer through the front lines of the COVID pandemic. Paid family leave is in there. I doubt very severely that it will make it through the Senate. But the single largest piece of this bill is $555 billion in climate programs, including tax incentives for us to buy electric vehicles, like $12,500 in tax credits when we do a purchase, when we buy an electric vehicle, right? We're talking about all kinds of investment in low emission energy. We're talking about building hundreds of thousands of charging stations across this nation. Okay? This is a game changer. This is a transformational thing, and they are against it. They're against it. You know what they're for? They're for homicide. Yeah, that's what they're for. They're for homicide. They literally want to give guys like Kyle Rittenhouse a job in the House of Representatives. Oh, by the way, I have to tell you that the family of Anthony Huber, who was the second person that Kyle killed, dead, they just put out a statement, and the statement is it's heartbreaking to read what this family is now having to go through, knowing that justice in this country eluded them forever and a day. It will never happen for them. They will never, ever, ever have any justice for the thoughtless, incredibly stupid taking of their son's life for simply trying to be a concerned citizen who saw this miscreant kill another, take a shot at a guy we don't even, we hear he was a reporter. He was I don't even want to say a journalist. He was a videographer for the Daily Caller. And Kyle took a shot at him and missed. And Huber tried to stop him. And now he's dead. No problem.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. After Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum, he ran from the scene of the killing down Sheridan Road. And when he was running, he fell. He fell to the ground. And for some strange reason, he shot and missed a man. He fell to the ground and he shot his gun. He waved it. He shot it. He was provoking, some other guy, also unarmed. I believe that that's the guy from the Daily Caller. And it was at that moment that Anthony Huber believed that there was an active shooter because he'd already killed one guy and took a shot and missed another guy. And Anthony Huber used his skateboard to try and stop an active shooter from killing even more people. And that's when Kyle Rittenhouse fired at Anthony Huber, who was 26 years old and lived in Kenosha. It was the third night of protests that had happened as a result of the police shooting a black man named Jacob Blake 7 times in the back. So apparently in Kenosha, the laws are thus. You can, if you're a police officer, shoot an unarmed black man in the back who is trying to break up a fight and get away with it. And in Kenosha, you could be a 17-year-old with an AR-15 that was illegally purchased for you, right? And you can shoot unarmed men in the front if they try to stop you after you've killed one man and shot at another. Okay, that's the law in Kenosha. The family of Anthony Huber, Karen Bloom, who is his mother, and John Huber, who is his father, just released a statement after the verdict, and it's heartbreaking. They said, "We are heartbroken and angry that Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted in his criminal trial for the murder of our son, Anthony Huber. There was no justice today for Anthony or for Mr. Rittenhouse's other victims, Joseph Rosenbaum and Gage Grosskreutz. We did not attend the trial because we could not bear to sit in a courtroom and repeatedly watch videos of our son's murder. And because we've been subjected to many hurtful and nasty comments in the past year, we stayed away. But we watched the trial closely, hoping it would bring us closure. That did not happen. Today's verdict means there is no accountability for the person who murdered our son. It sends the unacceptable message that armed civilians can show up in any town, incite violence, and then use the danger they have created to justify shooting people in the street. We hope that decent people will join us in forcefully rejecting that message and demanding more of our laws, our officials, our justice system. Make no mistake, our fight to hold these responsible for Anthony's death continues in full force. Neither Mr. Rittenhouse nor the Kenosha police, who authorized his bloody rampage, will escape justice. Anthony will have his day in court. No reasonable person viewing all of the evidence could conclude that Mr. Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. In response to a racist and violent call to action from militia members, Mr. Rittenhouse traveled to Kenosha illegally armed with an assault rifle. He menaced fellow citizens in the street. Though he was in open violation of a curfew order, Kenosha police encouraged him to act violently. Kenosha police told militia members that they would push peaceful protesters toward the militia so that the militia could, quote, deal with them. Soon after, Mr. Rittenhouse killed Joseph Rosenbaum. The police did nothing. Concerned citizens confronted with a person shooting indiscriminately on the street stepped in to stop the violence. Anthony was shot in the chest trying to disarm Mr. Rittenhouse and stop his shooting spree. Still, the police did nothing. Mr. Rittenhouse continued to shoot, maiming Gage Grosskreutz. The police let Mr. Rittenhouse leave the scene freely. Mr. Rittenhouse came to Kenosha armed to kill. Kenosha police encouraged him to act violently, and our son is dead as a result. We are so proud of Anthony, and we love him so much. He is a hero who sacrificed his own life to protect other innocent civilians. We ask that you remember Anthony and keep him in your prayers. I just can't even imagine hearing that verdict and being the mother of somebody who was left dead in the street because Kyle Rittenhouse went looking for trouble in Kenosha. And that's what he did. I mean, you don't go to Kenosha with a homemade kit full of Band-Aids, lie to people, tell them that you're an EMT when you're just some kid, pick up an AR-15, bring it with you, go to the store and buy a body strap for it, and then insert yourself into the third day of protests with people who are literally protesting the paralyzation. I mean, they paralyzed Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake is alive. He didn't die. I don't know how he didn't die. He was shot 7 times in the back by the Kenosha police for breaking up a fight. That's why people were on the street protesting. That's why people were on the street in the first place. And Kyle Rittenhouse left his house in Antioch, Illinois, and went there, picked up a gun there, bought a strap for the gun there, strapped the gun on there, lied to people about why he was there, said he was some sort of an EMT, and failed to render any aid to anybody after he shot them, which, you know, he's and you know what's really crazy? You know what was in Kyle Rittenhouse's hand? A fire extinguisher. He had a fire extinguisher, and we know that because we heard the testimony, that he was called by other militia members at the other used car dealership to come and put out a dumpster fire, right? And so he said he grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran there. That's when all this happened. So he had a fire extinguisher in his hand. And instead of using the non-lethal fire extinguisher to spray somebody he was afraid of, or to, you know, even roll it at them and trip them with it, or, you know, swing it or anything that would have, you know, hurt, it would have caused damage, but they wouldn't be, you know, Huber wouldn't be dead. Rosenbaum wouldn't be dead, right? Instead of that, he freaking used an AR-15 and killed these people. Killed them. And there's no justice. There's just no justice for this family. There's no justice for anybody that was killed by this miscreant 17-year-old. And no, the court, the jury system doesn't always work. You know what? OJ, that's what came into my head. Worst verdict ever. But you know what else? After 50 some odd years yesterday, 55 years too late, guys had served in prison for decades for the murder of Malcolm X, and they've just been exonerated because they weren't the right people. And the police who were at the murder of Malcolm X in Harlem, they were there. The NYPD, there was an undercover guy at the club where Malcolm X was killed, and they never took the undercover police officer's statement, nor did he ever testify in the trial. He knows that the two men who were convicted didn't do it. They're all dead now. The man was just released yesterday, 83 years old. 83 years old. And there was another a Netflix special on, another guy named Julius Jones, who also did not, he didn't commit the murder that he's accused of. He was set to get the death penalty yesterday in Oklahoma. And for some strange reason, Governor Stitt of Oklahoma, he gave him clemency, meaning we won't kill him because that would be irreversible, right? And all the evidence points to the fact that this guy didn't do it. Why? Because his co-defendant actually admitted to killing the person that he is serving time for killing. He didn't kill this man. Another guy killed this man, and another guy confessed to the killing of this man, and the Oklahoma governor couldn't bring himself to release him, so he just said, we won't kill him, we'll give him life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He didn't commit. But a 17-year-old white kid can do just about anything. Like I said, if what Kyle Rittenhouse did is self-defense, then what isn't? I can go and provoke people, and I can, be armed while they're unarmed, but when I trigger them, literally, and they come at me, I can then, what, kill them? Well, in Wisconsin, the answer is yes.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Celebrations across Oklahoma erupted as news of the 11th hour clemency spread. From the Capitol to college campuses, relief after the governor's decision narrowly spared the life of death row inmate Julius Jones. After prayerful consideration, writes the governor, I have determined to commute Julius Jones' sentence to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
He's an innocent man, doesn't deserve another day in prison, but to know that he's going to live, where there's life, there's always hope.
With Jones just hours away from lethal injection, he always maintained his innocence in the 1999 carjacking that ended with Paul Howell being gunned down in front of his family.
I was not involved in the planning of this robbery. I was not present during this robbery.
Convincing a pardon and parole board to grant him clemency, Jones' legal team says his friend who testified against him, Christopher Jordan, was likely the real killer and the man who planted the murder weapon inside Jones' home, which Jordan denies.
People could see very clearly that the trial was a sham and that this is not what they want justice to look like in America. And Julius himself is a compelling character, a promising young man who was arrested for a crime he didn't commit at 19 years old.
Amid a wave of grassroots protests, walkouts, and rallies, celebrities, athletes, and politicians showed their support, along with 7 million who signed a petition to prevent Jones' execution. But it's not only the prosecution who says there's overwhelming evidence Jones is guilty. So does the victim's family.
I am here to warn you. He is not innocent. Would you have this man over to your house with your family around your children?
Tonight, 22 years after a life was lost, another was narrowly spared.
It's unbelievable. There's been a confession to this murder of Paul Howell, and it isn't Julius Jones. It's somebody else. And the idea that, the parole board said, give him clemency, not only from the death penalty, but give him a chance at parole. And the governor said he prayed on it. And he'll not kill him, but he won't give him a chance at parole. And he's innocent. So, let's not kid ourselves. It's all about, how much you can afford to pay for representation and, whether or not you have a judge who has a ringtone that plays, Lee Greenwood at the trial, and, whether or not it's political enough. This is just, it's so sad. It's just, it's mind-blowing, really, to see those videos, to actually, because the star witness in this trial of Rittenhouse was the videos. And the videos clearly show that, 2 people are dead. One other guy was shot at and missed. And then the third guy, Gage Grosskreutz, had his hands up in the air. And when Kyle shot him, you can see that he blew his bicep off and his hand falls like this. So it looks like he's pointing his gun at Kyle. And this is how he got to claim self-defense in that particular count. Ridiculous. Mike in Mississippi. Mike in Mississippi. We need to pardon him. He's the Thanksgiving turkey.
Oh, he was particularly unsettling.
Well, that's why I took him first. I mean, I know he was, expressing racist views to you, let's say. So I was going to publicly, bless his heart is what I was going to do. But he's a coward. He's a chicken. Actually, he's a turkey. The turkeys got pardoned. Peanut butter and jelly were the names of the turkeys. Gary in Fort Lauderdale.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
Since Kyle Rittenhouse is soon going to be a government employee and a member of the Republican congressional machine, what is the proper way to refer to him now? I mean, is it murderer or killer? Because he really hasn't been convicted of murder.
So why are you giving me choices, both of which imply that he's been convicted of murder?
So in other words, we should just call him a killer from now on.
A killer.
A killer, right? And do you think that this verdict is going to affect the jurors in Georgia? May embolden them to acquit this other killer?
The facts in the Georgia case are completely different than the facts here, but the underlying white supremacy is the same. So I don't know what the Arbery jury is going to do. I have no idea. I do know that the jury selection was another one of those, crazy moments in time when you realize racism is alive and well, that you could end up in Brunswick, where 25% of the population is black, that you could end up with an all-white jury except for one member is just, it takes your breath away in the 21st century. But that's what we're dealing with over there. Yeah, I mean, you have, the Roddy dude, he asked the prosecutors last night. He saw the case. They rested. The defense rested, the prosecution rested in the Ahmaud Arbery murder case, right? And Roddy McDowell, who's one of the defendants, he saw the whole case, and he went to the prosecutors last night, and he said, "I want to plead guilty, but I want a plea deal." And the prosecutor said, "Absolutely not."
I don't know what to think of that. I mean, I would like to see the guy get a plea because at least he's going to go to jail.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is going on behind the scenes. I can only tell you that he knows he's guilty because he wanted to plead guilty last night. And the prosecutors didn't want to offer him leniency in the sentencing phase of.
Imagine if these people were found innocent after they tried to plead guilty.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's just it's a vile situation because
vile, yes.
Because remember, they sat a jury, and the jury is nearly all white. There's one black man on it, and they have been standing up in court complaining about black pastors. It's just this country has pockets of the sickest people, toiling away in very high positions. Very, remember the reason why no one was charged in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery for 2 whole months isn't because of lack of evidence. This Roddy dude videotaped the whole thing, right?
No, it's because of the old man worked for the police department or something.
The old man worked for the district attorney. He was, he was the investigator for the DA, and she was, friends with him and didn't want to, indict him or his ne'er-do-well son.
Good old boy network.
Exactly. And
how about this question? Do you think that Kyle Rittenhouse has a future as a member of Congress?
So listen, here's what's going to happen, just so everybody understands. Kyle Rittenhouse is now done with the criminal portion of his life, right? You can't retry him. But there is a civil portion. There is a portion of his life that is not done. You have the Huber family suing him in a civil case for damages. I don't know that Rosenbaum had any family, and Gage Grosskreutz is also suing. So it's not over. And the idea, that this kid is going to be free to, just go about his life. I told you, his life's ruined.
And I hope so.
It is. And it should be, because you cannot do what he did, provoke violence, walk into a volatile situation known as a riot, right? With a long gun strapped around you as a 17-year-old, kill 2 people, take a shot and miss a 3rd person, and then blow somebody's bicep off and claim self-defense and not have to be in court for the rest of your life trying not to pay for it one way or another. So he won't go to jail. Why? Because he's a pasty-faced 17-year-old white boy who was tried in Kenosha. But there's civil cases pending.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
My colleagues here in the House and in the Senate know it. And staunch liberals in the press know it as well. Just a few weeks ago, Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger said, "Nobody elected Joe Biden to be FDR."
I did. Yeah, I did too. Kevin. See, now you know why I named male Karens Kevin. Now you get it, right? He's a Karen. You understand that? He stood there for 8 hours last night being a total Karen, just bitching and moaning and crying and yelling and screaming Stalinism and Marxism and socialism and picking ism, Kevin. I mean, it's just because he's against childcare. He's against universal pre-K. Lindsey Graham said he's against government-funded kindergarten. When you put it like that, it sounds really terrible, doesn't it? Government-funded kindergarten. Sounds like some Nazi plot. But they're against it. And why? Because the money, the big money, doesn't want any public school. And we're expanding public school. We're expanding access to public school with Pell Grants on the top end and pre-K at the beginning of life. Because kids are little sponges, They can suck up all kinds of language skills when they're just 3 years old. So why wouldn't we start teaching children earlier the way competitor nations do? because we have yahoos like Kevin McCarthy that are so afraid that the Treasury. See, let me just explain this to you in a nutshell. What's going on for real? Okay. So the Republican Party is supported by the richest faction of America: corporate, billionaires, multimillionaires, donor class, right? And if we actually start to distribute the money that is collected through taxation in this country to the middle class that actually pays the most taxes, we know that, right? Secretaries pay more in taxes than Warren Buffett does, right? Money making money is taxed the least in this country. So if we reversed it, right, the Treasury wouldn't be fat with all this tax money to distribute yet again to the billionaire class, the millionaire class, the corporate class. We wouldn't be able to excuse them from having to pay their fair share in this here country. And they would have no money left to reward them for them doing absolutely nothing, which is what the Republican Party is all about. It's about obstruction. It's about blame. It's about name calling. It's about bullying. It's not about results, and it's not about policy, and it's not about anything, right? So now that you have a president who's saying there is an enormous need in this country, and the taxpayers who pay the taxes have the need, and we ought to, for their tax dollar, give them things that could actually help them continue to be productive citizens, right? Like childcare that doesn't cost more than 7% of their income. Like pre-K, which benefits not only the economy, because the younger we start kids learning, the better off our workforce ends up in just a mere 12, 14 years, right? But it also benefits the working parents so that they know their kids are in a safe place learning stuff while they're off doing their day jobs, right? If we allow paid family and medical leave, well, that helps them too, because they wouldn't have to go without their salary, thereby penalizing the household, maybe ending up homeless, maybe ending up with ketchup and hot water and saltines for dinner instead of nutritious food. Now, you know, when kids are hungry, they can't learn. You know that, right? Maybe we ought to embolden the Medicare program to negotiate with Big Pharma, especially considering Big Pharma has murdered about 100,000 people this year alone. Yeah, by getting you addicted to opioids. Watch Dope Sick. It'll freak you out. I mean, it'll make you really angry. And hey, let's do something about climate change. Let's do something about dirty pipes. Let's do something to replace lead-infested pipes in this country that affect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not millions, of children and adults every single day in this country. Let's actually create jobs by replacing those lead pipes, and let's save lives by replacing those lead pipes, right? Well, if we do that, then there's no money left for the Republicans to redistribute to their wealthy donors, and their wealthy donors know it. And that's why they're so against you getting any sort of a subsidy for anything, but they're so for the best connected corporations getting subsidies for everything. Subsidies to come into your town, subsidies to make products that we already have or need, subsidies for this, subsidies for that, and then on the back end, no taxes, you get to keep all your... You see what I mean? So that is why they're so against progress, because progress means less money for them to pilfer, less money for them to steal, less money for them to redistribute as a very, big thank you gift to their donors who keep them in power, because the donor class loves the status quo. They love it. They love having a $0 tax bill at the end of a multi-billion-dollar profitable year. They love, Big Pharma loves the fact that they are banned, that Medicare, the government is banned from even sitting at a table with them to negotiate the price of insulin. And in this bill, insulin is capped at $35 a month. $35 a month. Insulin, one of the oldest drugs we have, still costs people multiple thousands of dollars to buy. Why? Because it's a game. It's rigged. It's rigged. That's the point of watching these trials and watching them be rigged right in front of your face. Just know there is a good old boy network. It's alive and well in this country. And when Donald Trump started screaming, "Drain the swamp," his supporters actually wanted the swamp drained, right? But what they didn't get was that he was the swamp. He was the swampiest of the swamp creatures. This is a man who gets away with fraud over and over again. This is a man who breaks the law over and over again. This is a man who steals and cheats and steals from contractors, meaning people who do drywall, people who install windows, people who do HVAC, right? He stiffs his own freaking lawyers. He stiffed a guy that supplied his casinos with pianos. He just never paid him. And they threw their support behind a guy who was going to screw them so badly simply because he, the guy, the demagogue, got out ahead of the feeling and said, "I know the feeling. I know what you're, upset about. I get your frustration. I alone can fix it. I will drain the swamp." Well, he did the exact opposite. You know why? Know why? Because he's a liar. That's why. But he did tap into what's really bothering Americans. And now we have a president who's actually doing something about that frustration. Now we have a president who's actually investing in you. Now we have a president who's actually building this country, who's investing in America first, who's actually putting real, serious amounts of dollars into helping us do better. Child tax credits and pre-K and Pell Grants and paid leave and mediating climate change and creating jobs along the way, too.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. A lot of people are really upset about gas prices, but people weren't driving for a year. And somehow gas prices still went up. There have been some calls to investigate these oil companies because also they don't really like Build Back Better either because it deals with their issues on the environment. But how is it that when people stayed home for a year, suddenly the price of gas went up? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So come on, Joy. We know exactly what the oil companies pay attention to, what is their number one priority: profits. And so think about it this way. If this were just ordinary inflation, we might see prices go up. But prices at the pump have gone up. Why? Well, let me give you a hint. Chevron, Exxon have doubled their profits. This isn't about inflation. This is about price gouging for these guys. So I get it. When we see prices go up, we're all concerned, and the Republicans want to come in and just try to hammer on one theme about this economy. But we got to pay attention to the fact that folks like the oil companies say, I think it's just another opportunity to make profits, and we need to call them out on that.
So this is really what I've been saying the whole time, right? That as soon as I read that Wall Street Journal article, the right wing's newspaper for business, saying that companies were betting that consumers would pay higher prices and that they were going to continue to raise those prices, I understood the lay of the land. This was another way to put it, right? That we hadn't driven long distances in a year, right? We hadn't driven because of the COVID pandemic. Therefore, demand was way down for oil, for gas. Demand was way down. How did the price go up? If supply and demand is what it is, then when demand was low, how did the price go up? Gouging. That's how. Gouging. They are trying to make up for the lack of demand they experienced over the past year by raising prices now that demand is back to normal. The supply should be plentiful because of look at all the gas we didn't use last year. So there must be a glut. There must be an enormous amount of supply, right? Right. It's gouging. And every company is doing it. They're doing it. Now, some of the things cost more to ship now because we have a shortage of truck drivers. You better be nice to your truck drivers because they're the ones that supply you with every damn thing. And I can say that as a former over-the-road, long-distance, long-haul truck driver. But they got COVID too, you know. And now, you know what they did in Florida? Oh, listen to this. You want to see how nefarious they are? Okay, so you know we have Ron Death Sentence as our governor of Florida, right? He's a mini-me Trump, okay? He's a brutal mini-me little piece of turd who runs around giving speeches and says, let's go Brandon in the middle of it. Let's go Bannon. Let's go Bannon. Lock him up, everybody. Lock him up. It's just so ironic, right? But anyway, so what does Ron Death Sentence do? He just raised the gas tax in Florida. He just raised the gas tax. It will affect diesel. It will affect gasoline of all grades. Yeah, he just raised the gas tax a half a cent. Why did he do that? So people will feel the pain at the pump and they will say, somehow, Joe Biden is responsible for the price of gas. When we all know that Exxon and Chevron and Mobil and, you name it, Standard Oil, right, whatever they are now, they're raising the prices. It's private business. It has absolutely nothing to do with the president of the United States, like nothing. The price of gas, nothing. But the governor could actually have a moratorium on the gas tax. He could actually legislate that with his Republican legislature, right? He's got a friendly legislature. He's a Republican. The legislature is Republican. They could vote to do some sort of a moratorium on the gas tax. Set it aside for a while. Let everybody pay 18 cents less a gallon in Florida or any state where there's a Republican governor and legislature. They could all do that. But instead, they're raising the gas taxes. Why are they doing that? Why do they do that here in Florida? They did it because they want you to see the pain, feel the pain, and not be able to explain who did that to you, right? So that you and they will then point at the president of the United States as if he has some superpower to raise the gas tax in your state, which he does not. But that's how cynical they are. That's how crappy they are. That's how they couldn't care less about you, they are. Melissa in California.
Hello, Randy.
Hello, Melissa.
I want to talk about Kevin McCarthy and how disappointed I am in him here. But
where do you live in California?
I am in Tehachapi, which is between Bakersfield and Lancaster, right in the middle of this.
He's your rep, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
And I can't do anything about him. But I want to explain about his quest for speakership because he lost it to Paul Ryan.
Yes, he did.
He opened up his big fat mouth about Hillary. And then they said, oh, no, we can't have him.
Well,
so
they needed when Kevin McCarthy put himself forward to be considered for Speaker of the House alongside Paul Ryan. What the Republican Party was really looking for was some Tea Party freak who wasn't too freaky. And they found their answer in Ayn Rand loving Paul Ryan. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how Kevin McCarthy lost the vote, right? And then he ended up withdrawing his name from consideration because he knew he was going to lose.
So now he is just consumed with it. He will do anything. He will lick any boot to be speaker.
Yeah, because remember, after January 6th, he actually stood on the floor and said Donald Trump is responsible. This was unbelievable.
Yes, and then he got called out because he talked to another member about the secret conversation he had with him.
No, he went down to Trump's house here. He came down here. He went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, he did, and licked his boot.
Right, and then all of a sudden, his whole attitude about January 6th changed.
Oh, of course.
All of a sudden, everything was cool. It was all okay. And you know what? You know what Trump dangles in front of them? Let me tell you what it is. Data.
Thank you.
It's data. It's data.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So Kevin McCarthy, was in line to be the Speaker of the House in 2018, and then the Democrats took over the House, and he couldn't, So now he is desperate, and he will do anything.
He has been steaming. He has been steaming, and it just blew out last night.
It was really freaky watching him, I got to say. For 8 hours.
I am a C-SPAN freak, too, so.
Yeah. Well, poor you. Poor me. We should get together, exchange.
Oh, no, I love it.
No, we should exchange information.
I live for it.
No. You have to understand that the first thing to curing our addiction to proceedings is to admit we have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, because I watched my family have fun last night. They all had fun. They were making muffins, and they were watching the Tiger King or whatever that thing is, and they 5 hours, and the same 5 hours I spent sitting in front of my computer watching Kevin.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, yeah, and this happened, too, for those of you who don't watch the C-SPAN the way Melissa and I do. God love you. You're having a good life, aren't you? Yeah. Anyway, you know Senator Foghorn there from Louisiana? You know who I'm talking about. The Senator John Kennedy, who really, really needs to trade his name in because he's disgracing that name, actually was in a confirmation hearing. Seriously, this is a confirmation hearing to be the controller of the United States. Ooh, sexy job, right? The controller. And this woman is a woman who escaped from the Soviet-controlled territory known as Kazakhstan as a young girl, educated herself, put herself all the way through school, and became somebody who could now be considered for the position of U.S. controller, okay? It's just so unbelievable to me. Her name is Dr. Sala Omarova, okay? And Senator John Kennedy was simply tasked with asking her some questions about her background and about her education. And she's a professor now. She teaches economics, okay? And instead, he went full Joe McCarthy Red Scare race baiting. Watch.
I don't mean any disrespect. I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness.
Senator, I'm not a communist. I do not subscribe to that ideology. I could not choose where I was born. I do not remember joining any Facebook group that subscribes to that ideology. I would never knowingly join any such group. There is no record of me ever actually participating in any Marxist or communist discussions of any kind. My family suffered under the communist regime. I grew up without knowing half of my family. My grandmother herself escaped death twice under the Stalin regime. This is what's seared in my mind. That's who I am. I remember that history. I came to this country. I'm proud to be an American. And this is why I'm here today, Senator. I'm here today because I'm ready for public service.
Wow. I mean, just every time you think that we've set a toe into the 21st century, they reach in, they pull us back into the 1940s, 1950s. This is MAGA meets the Joe McCarthy era. I mean, this is so bizarre. It is so disgusting. It is so ugly. I can't even believe it. Now, here's Elizabeth Warren explaining to you how cynical this all really is.
It is so cynical. Mm-hmm. If Professor Omarova had actually been somebody who'd been out there saying and writing, man, we need to help the big financial institutions. And whatever JP Morgan Chase wants is what I'm for, and we should deregulate. We should just let them run the entire country. You realize that those same Republicans would be hailing her as someone who grew up under this oppressive regime and then overcame it and came to America and fulfilled her dream to help giant financial institutions. But since that's not what she wants to do, since she has actually got a pretty good record of having written about the abuses in the financial system, talking about the crash in 2008 and how it was brought on by loading up on risks and regulators who were feckless. As a result, these giant banks are like, we don't want that woman. We have no. And so they look for a way to push back against her. Can't do it on the merits.
Right.
So they go after her for having been born under the Soviet Union's regime. She was born in Kazakhstan. Loses half her family to the Stalinists. They literally, her family, much of her family was murdered by them. She wants to come to the United States. She comes to the United States. She studies at American college. While she is here, the Soviet Union collapses. And she gets to stay and build a life here. She is a well-respected academic, not someone who sought the limelight. She has just worked through how she believes banking regulation should be run for the American people, not for the big banks. And that's how she ends up in this crazy Joe McCarthy meets Trumpism in the Senate banking hearing.
That's because Foghorn will do just about anything. So will Kevin McCarthy. So will, a whole bunch of MAGA senators and House members. And it is just so disgusting what Senator John Kennedy did to this woman who has been an American, is a professor at Cornell, okay? She's 55 years old, and all she is holding herself out for confirmation to be is controller of the U.S. currency. That is the job that she is qualified for. That is the job she seeks. That is the job she's been nominated for. And the Senate is supposed to just sit there and ask her questions about her view of this economy and her view of currency and her view of currency evaluation, devaluation, et cetera, and instead of asking this lawyer / professor at Cornell University, she is unbelievably qualified. She's been an expert witness on financial regulation. You know where she worked in government before? In the administration of George W. Bush. And instead of asking her about her view on economics, her view on currency, her view on, anything, banking regulation, deregulation, hoots Molly. I mean, he actually attacks her as being a commie. Sherrod Brown also responded. He said, Senate Republicans have a formula. Start with passing an inaccurate reference to her academic work, distort the substance beyond all recognition, mix in the words Marx, Lenin, communism, and end with insinuations about Professor Omarova's loyalties to her chosen country. That's how Republicans turn a qualified woman into a Marxist boogeyman. This is what happens when Donald Trumpism meets McCarthyism. Now, remember, McCarthy was a drunk, old, disgusting, greasy freaking senator from Wisconsin. And he was responsible for the Red Scare. Okay, when hundreds of communists, according to him, had infiltrated the government and they were, they had to be hunted and purged, drain the swamp. You see what I mean? This is a vicious, vicious smear campaign, and it's not just this one person. This is their technique. This is their tactic. Smear people who have done nothing but flee Soviet rule, lose half their family to murder, come here, educate themselves to the highest degree. I mean, like not just college, but graduate school, law school, get a degree, an MBA in economics, and then volunteer for public service. I mean, this is sexism, racism. This is all of it right out of Joe McCarthy's playbook. Now, why is Joe McCarthyism back? Well, remember who Donald Trump's hero lawyer is, right? It's Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, McCarthy's lawyer. That's Donald Trump's hero. That's what he elevates, that kind of red baiting, that kind of, and that's why everything that McCarthy did last night, this McCarthy, the current McCarthy, the Karen McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, Everything they did last night was laced with Marxist, communism, blah, 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 including kindergarten. Kindergarten was a commie plot. You know, pre-K was a commie plot. Pre-K was socialism. Pre-K was welfare. They're one-trick ponies, man. The problem is, this is why they don't want to teach history, because those who don't know our history are doomed to repeat it, and they like repeating it because it worked for them a couple times. This isn't the first time. Okay? This isn't the first time that they were able to, get American to turn on American based on the commie Red Scare, or American to turn on American based on race, or American to turn against American based on women are going to want everything. Women are going to, you'll see, you won't even recognize your country. Women in the workplace, my God, who's going to raise the kids? Who's going to, dress sexy and wear pearls for you when you come home? Who's going to fry up the bacon? We have gender roles in this country. You bring home the bacon as the man, and I fry it up in a pan, and then I have to wear the bacon as pasties to never let you forget you're a man. Oh, bite me. This is Washington you're listening to in 2021. All right, everybody, we all need our boosters. If it's 6 months out, I'm getting mine on Saturday. I'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.